Hello and welcome to my YouTube video. In this video, we are going to discuss about the various types of consents that are covered under data privacy for an organization to obtain before processing data or before processing personal data of any individual. Just to quickly touch base on what is data privacy, it's my right to choose what personal information do I want to share, with whom do I want to share this information, what is the purpose of sharing this information, and can that party further share this information with someone else? If yes, with whom and why? What is the overall task to be completed, right? And data privacy gives me the laws to cover me up, to help me protect my interest if in case I find my data being shared inappropriately or being used against my wishes, right? Against the consent taken from me. And consent management as such comes up to be a situation where you are obtaining my consent. You are obtaining and documenting and managing my consent for collecting, processing and sharing my personal information. So as a business, as an organization, you can't just pick up my personal information and process it, right? If you need to do something for me, if you are doing some processing for me, you need to obtain my consent as to this is the reason we need your information and we are going to use it this way. So that is what is a basic meaning of taking consent or having a consent. Now let's get into the details of the 10 different kind of consents that can be obtained depending on the kind of situation you are in. The first one is explicit consent, which is also known as an express consent. You know the clear purpose. It is meant for your sensitive personal information. A clear purpose is defined, and then you are asked for an affirmative action that after understanding the purpose, are you okay? Are you ready to give me the consent to process your data? And if you are ready, then a checkbox is to be filled in on a consent manual form. You need to tick mark it. On an online form, you need to check mark it, and accordingly, the personal data will be processed based on the check marks that you have used. Right? For example, you do that when you are filling up your form for personal loans from the bank. So bank takes your consent, telling you all the points, and you check mark on those points and sign the document and provide a consent that they can process your loan application. Right? Second is the implicit consent. Implicit consent, which is also known as implied consent, which means that when the actual activity comes in, we inform you of how your personal data is going to be utilized, collected and utilized, and we don't wait for your action, right? You may ignore accepting things, but if you ignore accepting things, then we assume that you have given us the consent. For example, the cookie policy, you are surfing through a website, through online shopping or anything, and we flash you that here is the cookie policy and we will collect your personal information through the cookies and we'll use it in these ways. And if you accept it, good. Even if you don't accept it, we assume that you have given us the consent, until of course if you reject it and log out of the website, right? So implied consent is that we are assuming that you have provided us the consent until you have rejected and logged out of the application. Third is informed consent. This is where a clear information of your personal data being collected and the way it is going to be used, shared and processed is provided to you. Right? You're also provided about the information of what are the possible risks with your data and what are the possible benefits that you'll get at the end of processing of your personal data. And this largely comes up for examples like medical treatments. So you go to the doctor and for a procedure, and doctor explains you the entire procedure, and you just need to provide a consent that you have got under a complete understanding. You are allowed to raise doubts, clarify your doubts, and accordingly, once you are sure, you just say, okay, I'm ready with it, and you sign the document, right? You fill up the consent form and you sign the document, and that is called an informed consent, where you are thoroughly informed about the data being collected and the purpose of its collection, and you are allowed to raise doubts and clarify your doubts, right? So you are fully aware of what are you signing at. Then comes an opt-in consent. An opt-in consent is when you are informed about the purpose and it's shown on the agreement, and you decide to check mark that whether you want this task to be done for you or not, whether you are okay with this kind of data collection and processing or not. So again, you have a check mark and you opt for yes, I may like to do this particular thing, right? And you use the opt-in consent and get into it. The information is published and you have selected, you have opted to be a part of the data processing in that consent. Like for example, there's a newsletter that is being published and you say, yes, I want to subscribe for a regular newsletter, right? So that's opting in for something that is available, and it is not a standard thing in the sense that it is not specially made for you. It's something that is published somewhere and you opt in and say, okay, I want this information on a regular basis, right? So that is your opt-in and getting into it and putting in your consent. Similarly, you have another one which is granular consent. Right? Granular consent says there is a set of tasks that might be done from your data. You choose which of these are acceptable to you and which of them are not acceptable to you. So practically you choose the ones which are acceptable to you, keep tick mark the ones that are acceptable to you, and press the submit button, and consent is assumed to be taken only for the ones that you have check marked, right? For example, when you open up a bank account, it is you are given a consent form, and there you select whether you want to opt for net banking, email statements, paper statement, or SMS alerts, right? And you check mark which all you want, right? You don't want a SMS alert, you don't want a monthly email statement, you want just the net banking. So you choose granularly which consent you want to provide and what is the facility that you are looking for. Then comes the conditional consent, where you say that okay, we are collecting my information, but you are going to process this only when a particular condition is met. Okay, for example, age of data collection is one important thing. We do a lot in our finance areas where you apply for a loan, and the banker says that your CIBIL score is slightly low and I can't process your loan application right now. Maybe we can look at it after 3 months if your CIBIL improves. So you give him a consent that if after 3 months my CIBIL score improves to a level that the bank can give me the loan, then the bank is allowed to process my application. That means I am giving a consent that in 3 months the bank will check my CIBIL score again, and if the bank is satisfied with my CIBIL score, they will process my application based on the data they have collected today, and maybe if they need any additional information at that point in time, right? So you are asking the data processing company to process your data when a condition is met. You are giving them a conditional consent, or from the other side they are taking a conditional consent from you. Parental consent is relatively easy. It is assumed that young children are not fully capable of understanding and taking a decision to a lot of things that that we all do and enjoy in our lives. So the children are not giving the consent, and their respective parents or guardians are giving consent on their behalf. Some countries treat 13 as the age, some 16, some 18. The idea is that based on the age of a minor considered in your part of the world, the consent is to be provided by the parent or the guardian if the child is less than 10 age. For example, when you have a newborn baby, maybe 3-4 years, a minor child in your home, and you want to open their account in the bank, then it's a minor account open and everything is filled up and signed by the parent. Even the checkbook is signed by the parent. It is not the child who is signing a check if the child is issuing a check, right? So that's what is a parental consent. And also if there are medical treatments required for a child, it's the parent who is allowing the hospital or the doctor to carry out the treatment. Next comes proxy consent. Proxy consent is when the person for whom the data is to be processed is either not available or is not capable of doing it, and then he provides a consent to someone else on his behalf to allow processing of his data. It happens a lot where you have these shareholder meetings, right? You get that email including on a paper document. Also you get a proxy form along with it, that if you can't attend the shareholders meeting, do you want someone else, or do you want to authorize someone else to attend the shareholders meeting on your behalf, right? So you put in a proxy content over there and a consent over there, and accordingly the proxy authorized representative is allowed to attend it. It could also be for medical treatments where the patient is not capable of being in a situation to provide the consent. So when you take a patient in emergency or when the patient is not available to sign the documents, you are appointed as the authorized representative to give the consent of any medical treatment that the hospital or the doctor would be conducting on your patient. And finally, we come to revocable consent. This is that when I have provided a consent for an activity, but at some point in time I think that I don't want to continue with this activity. I just want that processing of my data should be stopped here. Then to get that stopped at a particular stage, I use my revocable consent facility. Now, of course, you need to know before getting your data processed that would you be offered facility to revoke your consent at any point in time during data processing, right? So that's revocable consent. You revoke your consent and you don't allow people to process your data, and maybe if the condition is so, you may ask them to erase your data if it is no further required, right? So for example, you are on a mail campaign or you are on a newsletter subscription and there's an unsubscribe button. So the moment you click unsubscribe, you are revoking your consent from it. Some organizations go into detail of it and give you 10 options and say we would remove you from our marketing campaigns, but you decide about what kind of campaigns you want to us to remove. So it could be, you can say A, it is revocable because I was on email subscription and I want to remove email subscription, and B, they are making it granular as well, that they are saying we do SMS, we do email, and we do this. So you are mixing two kinds of consent, but that is how a consent can be handled and can be taken. You need to have a nice consent form, whether online or offline, with a clear purpose, so that there is no issue after data processing or after getting the outcome of data processing that a proper consent was not available. It's very important to be handled that way when it comes to data privacy. That's all that I had to talk about the types of consents we had. In the previous video, we did understand what is the basic concept of taking consent. Now we have seen what are the various types of consents in different situations. I hope you like my content. Please press the like and bell icon and subscribe to my channel to get more information on data privacy in times to come. Thank you.